The flooding in Duluth caused about $100 million in damages. About $20 million of that is said to be in roads. 1,400 miles of roads in St. Louis County have been damaged. Now, joining me right now, we have the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, Joe Gimse, to give us his perspective on this damage and on some broader transportation issues as well. Senator, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again.
Let's begin with the flooding in Duluth. And obviously, most people have seen the images coming from that area of the roads and the washed out roads. So, as transportation chair, how did you think about this and begin assessing the damages?
Well, right away, of course, we became concerned about safety and keeping traffic moving, of course, and also about the effects that it has on the people of Duluth and the surrounding areas. Certainly, tourism is big for them up there, and we were very concerned that we kept the town open, if you will, and we reached out to Senator Reinert and asked him to give us an assessment, which he has done, and also officials in Duluth, and that there is a MnDOT district right there that has been very helpful in the process.
When you saw those images coming over the news, though, did you start thinking in terms of what can I do legislatively, or was that not even an issue at that point?
I think almost immediately when you're in a position like this, you start to think about that and how you can be helpful. And you know, touring the site, the area around, and the damage, you get a picture of just what they're going through. And now, as we go through the process with the federal government and local officials of coming up with some solid answers as far as what the costs are going to be, I think the committees, Representative Beard in the House, myself, will be working very closely with MnDOT and the administration to find ways that we can expedite and move forward with the repairs on the roads.
So, Senator, when state funds are used for emergencies like this, do you find that other projects that are pending tend to fall a little bit lower on the radar because this is using up some funds?
Well, we have contingency funds that are available, and also we have a bit of a margin in our bonding capacity. So as we move forward with the repairs on this, we want to get the roads open, so there are temporary repairs being done as we speak. But to make the permanent repairs and to fix the roads as they were before, I think that we will have the capacity and the ability to do that without having a long-term effect on our ongoing priorities and projects.
Let's talk about some of those other projects. One is Highway 14 in Mankato. It's currently a two-lane highway with a very high number of head-on collisions. Now, by waiting on the project, it was revived because there were some lower bids that came in. Is this a sign of the future, perhaps waiting on projects till something a little more that falls in and certain financial constraints comes in?
Well, I don't think that that's going to be the way that we're going to be evaluating programs. We have a very defined methodology when we look at all of our priorities across the state of Minnesota. I see this as a bit of an unusual circumstance in that it has risen to the top because of the safety aspects, because of the traffic aspects, and then also the economic development potential that is out there. We've held hearings both in the House and the Senate as late as the last week of session, brought in the Highway 14 folks to talk about that particular project. I was surprised at how quickly the governor moved on that, but we're going to keep a watchful eye on those types of things in the future.
Senator, the last time you were on Capitol Report, we were talking about the transportation bills as they currently sat just before they were about to be passed in the House and Senate. Mm-hmm. At that time, the MnPass 35E MnPass lane was still speculative. It didn't make it in the final package. Is it something that you would consider reviving if and when there's a special session or next session, or not at all?
Well, I don't think in this case where we're talking about disaster relief that would be the time or the place to revisit the MnPass concept. It's not really a concept anymore. It actually works and works very well. But you know, at some point in time, I think we will be revisiting it, and certainly I'm very much in favor of that type of an approach because, again, it does work.
What are going to be some of your priorities if you are indeed transportation chair again next session?
Well, we have to go through the budgeting process again, and we will be looking at what the priorities are around the state and allocating those dollars to the 12 different areas that are under the purview of the Transportation Committee. And you know, that's quite a process. It's almost $5 billion that we we work with. So,
are there any that stand out, though, that perhaps didn't make it into the packages in the past?
well, we don't get parochial, I call it. We take a look at what the recommendations are from our area transportation partnerships and also MnDOT, and we use that to prioritize how we move forward with projects. We don't allow legislative interaction, and we hope for the most part that we don't have the administration prioritizing or earmarking projects, if you will. That's not something that we do. We typically take the projects that are in the queue, that have risen to the level that they should through the process, and fund them. But I do want to say that preservation and maintenance of what we currently have is going to continue to be a high priority for this transportation chair.
You serve on the Transportation Finance Advisory Committee as well, and it looks at the financing of roads, highways, bridges, as well as air, rail, and port facilities. Now, the group has a December deadline to submit its recommendations to the governor. Where are you in the process?
Well, we just met this past week and received the overviews from the metropolitan area, and we're getting past the overview stage where everybody is getting up to speed on just where the money is spent and how it's allocated within the different components of transportation. But I'm hopeful that we will start to talk about the ideas. I have ideas along with Representative Beard. We have a proposal for a corridor initiative that would allow corridor regions like Highway 14 to create a way of helping us help them fund their transportation needs. And I think it's a very good idea. We have some work to do on it, but within the next month or so, I think it'll be prepared to submit before the TFAC, as we call it, Transportation Finance Advisory Council, and see what their thoughts are. Have them brainstorm on it and help us to create a program that is a different way of looking at funding transportation in Minnesota, and I'm looking forward to that.
Will you wait until those recommendations are released before you start thinking in terms of the budgeting cycle for the next legislative session as far as different road priorities? Will these all marry together?
Well, I think that they will marry together. We have a December 15th deadline. I think by the middle of January, which is after the time when we'll come back into session, some of those ideas will solidify. The ones that can work, will be on the table for additional consideration, and we'll have hearings on those ideas in our committee. So.
And finally, Senator, next session, as we've already mentioned, it is a budget session. Now, assuming that, well, we know that most of the transportation dollars are from dedicated funds. The last biennium, there was roughly $34 million, dedicated for different projects. What's your early assessment of how much money you might have to work with next session or for the next biennium, and will it be enough?
Well, as to whether it'll be enough or not is never enough. And but we're looking at alternatives and other ways of financing transportation. But beyond that, our funding is relatively steady with license fees, registration fees, gas tax. So we do know, with some certainty how much money will be coming in, and just allocating that properly to these preservation and maintenance efforts, and also the expanded and engineered design projects that increase, or I should say, decrease congestion, are going to be very important and high priorities.
And real quickly, would you consider increasing any of these fees if necessary?
I'd like to see the TFAC group work through the process, see what kind of ideas they can come up with. I'm not, at first blush, in favor of increasing any of those fees, but letting this group do its work and see what they come up with, and see if we can come up with some innovative ideas. Like I say, I have ideas that I want to share and move forward with, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with solutions that don't include additional tax increases.
Okay, Senator, we'll hopefully get you back on the program when you do craft some legislation. Until then, thank you again for joining us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.